Okay, here's what we're going to do with these two blanks. This blank is bird's eye maple, and this blank is Texas ebony. It's a real light color Texas ebony. But this is going to be the upper blank, and this is going to be the lower blank. Notice what I've done here on the upper blank. I've isolated where the tubes are going to go. It's going to go from here to here in the upper blank. And in the upper blank, we're going to cut a V. You can see I've got it drawn here. We're going to cut a V section out of this one. And we're going to cut a V section out of this one. Then we're going to swap the two. So when the blank is finished, this bird's eye maple blank will have a Texas ebony inset, and the Texas ebony blank will have a bird's eye maple inset. And we'll cut this on the bandsaw. And to do that, using my sled on my bandsaw, I also use what's called a machinist block. It's got a 45-degree angle on it, and then I made a little fixture to set against my fence on my bandsaw. Machinist block sits in there like this, and then we will put the blank in there and hold it, and our first cut will come in right there, and we'll make a cut. Then we'll rotate it, make a cut, complete that side, and then we'll turn it around this way and do the same thing to remove this section out of the blank. But you notice the first thing I did, and this is critical, I divided the blank right in half on the lengthwise. I did that on both sides, so that's the center. And these two blanks, by the way, I trimmed up to be the exact same size. Both of them are 3/4 of an inch square. And then I wanted our cutout section, or our V's, to be 1 inch. This is 1 inch from here to here. And I laid it out to where it would fit nicely in the upper blank once we've got it done. So, and then I carried those lines all the way around to the other side. And again, accuracy is important, especially this center line, because that's what we have to stop on. When we make our cut, we have to stop there, and then we have to come in this way and stop again. So, you'll see when we make the cut. Okay, you can see I've got it set up here. Got it set up to enter that ebony blank right there on our line. And we will stop our cut right there at that point that we established. That is a pretty good cut. You see how critical it is when you push that through, not to shoot past. If you shoot past, then you have to clean it up, or it's scrap, one or the other. And then so it's why it's, when you're pushing it through here, I've got my thumbs back here on the back of the sled, and I'm just, it's almost like a micro adjustment. So now we're ready to make the same cut on the maple. Now we have to make another setup to do this end, to come in here. I'll set it up and come back on camera. Okay, now we're set up to make our first cut here. Alright, you can see we'll have to clean this one up just a little bit. See, we've got a little gap there, but we'll take care of that in a minute. But now we've got, I'll mark that. I mark this side. I marked a 1 here and a 1 here and a 1 here. That way I know how it's all oriented. Now we'll repeat. And that one too, we're going to have to clean up a little bit right there, and I'll show you how we do that. What's important here is when you've got this in against your block, a couple of things that are real important. One, your blade. It should be I've tried it with a 1/4 inch blade and it's rather difficult. So if you can use a 3/16 inch or a 1/8 inch blade and a fairly new blade, makes it much easier. I tried this last night with a 1/4 inch blade that was old and it just was a disaster. So I put a new 3/16 inch blade in this morning, and you saw how easy it is to cut. It lets you really control, and your tension needs to be right so you don't get any spring back. If you get some spring back, then it'll spring in and overcut, if you will. So your setup is critical, your blade tension, your placement, and your feed. Just a couple of points of interest. Alright, if we look real close, right here, there's a little burr that's keeping that from closing up. So we have to remove this little burr, and that's just done with a chisel. You have to clean that up a little bit sometimes. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. This ebony is beautiful, but it's hard. It's not real easy to work with, so I wouldn't suggest this wood as one of your first ones for this attempt. See, we still got a little gap right here. I would do something like walnut. Something softer till you get the hang of what's needed. Oops, there it is. That's the orientation. You can always, if you lose track of your orientation, you can tell by the grain. Got a little burr here too. Can always just get a piece of sandpaper and sand that burr off, not to destroy that point, but can sand your burr off. There. That's pretty good. Would like for that to be better, but we'll see. We're going to swap the two anyway. Now, let's look at this one. See, we've got a pretty good burr here. I'm going to mark this. Got a pretty good burr. You can see it right there. We need to sand that off. Now that's a real good fit. So now what we're going to do is pull a swap. Let's pull a swap. We'll glue this one into that one. Got a real good fit there. Gonna have to work on this one a little more here. Oh, there we go. And again, you may have to fine tune it. And this one, you still have a little burr in this ebony here, not letting that maple seat like it should. I'm going to work on it off camera and then I'll come back. Okay, I got them fine tuned, and sometimes you'll just have to be real careful, take some patience, using your chisel, using some sandpaper to make them fit. Now, we're ready to start gluing them in now. And you've got two options. You can glue it in as it is if the fit's real perfect. Or I have cut 4 pieces of aluminum. This is 1/64 inch thick aluminum, which is 16 thousandths, and it's about 3/4 inch wide by 1 inch long. What I'm going to do on both pieces, we're going to take a piece of aluminum, kind of push it in, let it mold it. That side, that side. Then we'll take a clamp, let it mold it just a little bit more. Now you're going to notice with the lighter woods, if you've got any mistakes, it really shows up right at the point here. On the darker woods, not quite so much, but on the lighter woods, you'll see. Okay. Okay, now we're going to glue this together. The important part is on your pieces of aluminum. First of all, keep your wooden pieces oriented. Once you get your tight fit that you want, mark them so that you know how they're oriented. And then your pieces of aluminum, if that's what you want to use. You can also use other things, but I'm going to use Loctite heavy duty 2-part epoxy. But on your pieces of aluminum, make sure you've got the burrs off of them. I sand mine with 150, 220 grit, and then I clean them off to get oil and aluminum dust off. And now I am mixing the 2-part epoxy. Once that is mixed, I'll apply it to every surface and then just put it in a little 6-inch clamp for quite a while. Denatured alcohol will clean off your epoxy off your fingers, off your tools. We want to make sure that all the pieces are down. And now we'll put a little clamp on it. We'll just set that aside to dry. Well, here are our two blanks out of the clamps. Now we are ready to drill them and put them in a pin kit. I'll not show this on camera, but when we come back we'll have two finished ballpoint pens, and there's a extra little feature that comes with this, and I'll show you when we get them turned. Well, the worst thing that could happen did, and this is one of the things you have to watch for when you're doing segmentation with aluminum or any other metal, is when I went to drill it, it broke down and separated. This is actually the second time, and not only that, but it also cracked out at the bottom. You can see there it kind of blew out at the bottom, and then also separated. And the other one, the reverse of that one, did the same thing as well. Now this one I tried to glue back together, but I don't think I'm going to bother turning it because we just don't see the good fit right here and right there that we need to make the pen real nice. So the same thing happened on both of them. You know, that's unfortunate too, because there's a lot of effort that goes into these blanks, but you know, that's what you run into when you start doing some elaborate things with your pen making. Now, what might have caused this? There's a couple of things, and I'm going to remake them, but I'm going to do something a little different. First of all, I wonder if my epoxy may have been a little too old. I don't remember when I bought it. I failed to put a date on it, but the epoxy might have been a little old. And also, I tried a new supply for the piece of aluminum that I went into. Usually I buy my aluminum sheets at Hobby Town, a certain brand. Well, this time I bought it at Hobby Lobby, and it was packaged different. It's probably a different manufacturer. Maybe it's a different alloy. I don't know. But something was different, because I've never had two to fail in exactly the same. By the way, my bit was a brand new bit. It was a 31/64 bit, just short of ½ inch. And also, I think the next time what I'm going to do is maybe step up to the 31/64. Drill it with a small hole all the way through, and then the next size hole, or a middle size, say maybe a quarter, and then something in between a quarter and 31/64, but build up to the 31/64. But one of the things, like you've seen in some of my other videos, when you're dealing with the aluminum, you have to keep your bit cool, and I made sure I did that. Kept it cool, used denatured alcohol, kept it clean. That wasn't the problem. I think it was an issue of either aged epoxy or possibly contaminated aluminum surface, or something like that. So, but we're going to remake them and using some different materials. But it's a great technique. Makes a beautiful pen if you can get through all the trials. So that's what we'll do next time. We'll step drill it, some new epoxy, some new aluminum. We'll get a success out of it. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Sorry about the fail this time, but hey, that's pen making. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the viewers. And if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Give me some suggestions if you've got any suggestions. If it's your first time to view our channel, we'd ask that you subscribe, and so that you can be on board with us when we put new videos on. Once again, I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. And until next time, work safe.